Coming up on Arirang News. Considering North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's escalating hostile rhetoric against the South, U.S. officials say the regime could carry out lethal military action as it has, quote, chosen to continue going down a very negative path. South Korea's ruling People Power Party lawmaker Bae Hyun-jin remains in hospital after Thursday's shocking attack on her. The political circle is calling for better safety measures ahead of the general election in April. The Winter Youth Olympics, currently being held in Gangwon-do Province, South Korea, has hit the halfway point. We take a look at prospective young athletes chasing their dreams. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with the U.S. security officials raising alarms on the possibility of North Korea's lethal military action in the near future. They warn Kim Jong-un's escalating hostile rhetoric against South Korea should be taken seriously. Our Choi Min-jung leads us off.
U.S. officials say North Korea could take some form of lethal military action against South Korea in the coming months. Quoting White House Deputy National Security Advisor Jonathan Feiner, who spoke at an Asia Society forum on Thursday, the New York Times reported that the regime had, quote, chosen to continue going down a very negative path. Daniel Russell, a former senior official at the U.S. State Department, also said that preparation should be made for the possibility of shocking kinetic action, with the leader seemingly intent on a strike that goes beyond North Korea's shelling of the South's Yeonpyeong Island in 2010. According to a report released by the conservative U.S. think tank, the Heritage Foundation, the regime could make use of nuclear weapons more easily during a crisis. It said the regime's increasing rate and diversity of missile launches shows that Pyongyang is making significant progress toward implementing a more capable and flexible nuclear strategy. The warning comes after Pyongyang recently shifted to a policy of open hostility. The North has been more aggressive with provocations this month, with the recent firing of cruise missiles in the West Sea and the test launch of what it claimed to be a new solid-fuel hypersonic intermediate-range missile. It also fired hundreds of artillery shells off its western coast earlier in the month, prompting South Korean islanders to evacuate. The North Korean leader also called for constitutional amendments to officially label South Korea as its most hostile state. However, despite Pyongyang's hardline approach, experts say there appear to be no concrete signs that North Korea is gearing up for a major war. A U.S. official said North Korea's alleged weapons delivery to Russia, which prevents the regime from stockpiling arms, could be a sign that Kim is not planning for a major military operation. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The leaders of the U.S. and Japan will be meeting this spring as Washington seeks to strengthen Indo-Pacific alliances. The White House said Thursday local time that President Joe Biden will host Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on April 10th for an official visit to the United States. U.S. National Security spokesman John Kirby said they'll likely discuss a range of issues in Asia, including how to improve cooperation with South Korea. Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo have been boosting efforts to handle North Korea's evolving nuclear threats and its military cooperation with Russia. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is in Thailand and will meet China's Foreign Minister Wang during his visit there. Their discussions could include Taiwan and conflicts in the Red Sea as they try to manage the relationship between Washington and Beijing. Our Kim Jong-sil has more.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will meet Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Bangkok, according to a White House statement released on Thursday local time. The statement said the two will meet in the Thai capital on January 26th and 27th. The Chinese Foreign Ministry also released a local time statement on Friday confirming the meeting, saying Wang will be in Thailand from January 26th to 29th. The White House said the meeting was a continuation of the commitment made at the summit between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping last November to maintain strategic communication and responsibly manage the relationship. Citing multiple U.S. officials, the Wall Street Journal reported that Sullivan and Wang will likely discuss the situation in the Red Sea, where Iranian-backed Houthi rebels are attacking commercial vessels. Sullivan recently raised the issue earlier this month in Washington with Liu Jianchao, head of the Chinese Communist Party's international department, during his U.S. visit. U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby also recently told reporters China has influence over Tehran. They have the ability to have conversations with Iranian leaders that we can't. The U.S. may call on China to use its influence and, quote, try to help stem the flow of weapons and munitions to the Houthis. Sullivan and Wang will also likely discuss Taiwan, where a presidential election recently took place. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, Bloomberg reported on Thursday local time that Russia had sent signals to the U.S. through indirect channels, indicating President Vladimir Putin's willingness to enter discussions to end the war in Ukraine. The report said these signals were sent to U.S. senior officials last month, according to two sources close to the Kremlin. However, officials in Washington have denied receiving any back-channel signals or messages from Moscow. Bloomberg also said that in return for negotiations, Russia would want to maintain control over the roughly 18% of Ukrainian territory that it had captured since its invasion began in February 2022. Over in the Middle East, people in Gaza are fighting for their lives every second because of the war between Israel and Hamas, with no clear end in sight. Our Yoon hears the story from Oxfam International in Ramallah, West Bank.
An intentionally made, unlivable piece of land. This is how Dr. Hadeel Qazzaz, Oxfam's regional gender coordinator in Ramallah, currently describes the Gaza Strip.
It's a humanitarian catastrophe. It's something that have never happened in modern history, not in this scale, not in this speed, not in this way.
Since the start of the war, people in the Gaza Strip have been displaced multiple times and are evacuating to the southern part to flee the ongoing bombardment by the Israeli occupation.
First, they pushed people to 60% of the land. Now they are pushing people to less than 10% of the land of the Gaza Strip. People are squeezed like a lemon.
More than 80% of the total population seeks refuge in the southern cities of Rafah and Khan Yunis. Amid constant bombarding, leaflets fly around ordering people to evacuate, immediately turning the area into a total war zone.
So the whole family fled the house and they were running for their life. They were just running. They didn't know where to go. They didn't carry anything with them.
The biggest hospital in Khan Yunis, Nasser Hospital, is under bombardment with at least 100,000 people forced to evacuate. This is twice the number of people who have evacuated from Al-Shifa Hospital, Israel's previous target in the north of the Gaza Strip. This includes civilians who are taking shelter, injured people undergoing treatment, and doctors who are exhausted. Already, the lack of essential medication had doctors performing operations without anesthesia, including amputations and cesarean sections.
Newborn babies who die because of hyperthermia or because of starvation, because their mothers cannot nurse them. Many babies are born premature.
Many had to flee to Rafah from Khan Yunis, which is already crowded with over 1 million people. Dr. Qazzaz describes how people there are having to pitch tents anywhere they can, in the street, in basements, and under trees. And with not enough humanitarian aid for the entire population, people in Gaza are starving.
Every aspect of life in Gaza at the moment is totally destroyed. Totally.
Yoon, Arirang News.
After talks between the two main parties in Korea failed to extend the grace period of the Serious Accident Punishment Act for small companies, President Yoon expressed regret, criticizing the opposition party as irresponsible. This came via a written statement on Friday, a day after the National Assembly's last chance to extend the grace period for business owners of 49 or fewer employees. The law punishes CEOs and owners for industrial accidents that lead to death or serious injury with up to 1 year in prison or a fine of around $749,000. The ruling People Power Party and the president believe these companies are unprepared, while the opposition demands more government measures such as an industrial safety agency and increased funding. Now, moving on to Thursday's shocking attack on Bae Hyun-jin, a lawmaker from South Korea's ruling People Power Party. Bae remains at Suncheonhyang University Hospital, where she was transferred shortly after being struck on the head with a rock by a 15-year-old assailant. She remains conscious, and her injury is not believed to be life-threatening. But one of her aides has said she's experiencing pain and dizziness. Meanwhile, the assailant is currently under investigation and says that the attack was a random crime after encountering Bae on the street. He was placed under emergency hospitalization on Friday morning by the police and had reportedly said during questioning that he'd been waiting for a doctor's order that would admit him to a closed psychiatric ward due to a depression relapse. And this shocking incident occurred just 3 weeks after a separate assault on the chairman of the main opposition Democratic Party, Lee Jae-myung. With election campaigns coming up, there are growing calls for additional safety measures. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
Repeated attacks on politicians in South Korea are causing its political circle to call for better safety measures. On Friday, a day after the attack on ruling People Power Party representative Bae Hyun-jin, and just 75 days before the general election, during which lawmakers will be meeting many people outside the confines of the National Assembly, lawmakers, regardless of their affiliation, share their concerns on violence against politicians. PPP floor leader Yoon Jae-ok said it was likely that this kind of incident would recur unless South Korean politics cease spreading hatred.
Our democracy will be suffocated by rampant violence if we do not take fundamental measures right now and make joint efforts for our entire political community.
On Monday, PPP members of the National Assembly Public Administration and Security Committee will meet with National Police Agency Commissioner General Yoon to discuss further protection measures. The DP, whose chairman Lee Jae-myung was attacked by a knife-wielding assailant just 3 weeks ago, also spoke out against hate.
The Democratic Party opposes all forms of violence and terrorism that threaten democracy. In addition, we'll expand our solidarity with people who oppose hate.
The party held a meeting on Friday of its committee dedicated to coming up with measures against what they call political terrorism, which was established soon after the attack on Lee. It suggested forming a multi-partisan assembly-wide committee to discuss measures to prevent political acts of terror. Meanwhile, the NPA assembled a 27-person team to investigate the recent attack. Police are also operating a protection team for leaders of the main rival parties, the PPP's Han Dong-un and DP's Lee. The agency is also considering providing special protection for 2 other major active politicians, Lee Jun-seok and Lee Na-gyun. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Former Supreme Court Chief Justice Yang Seung-tae was acquitted on Friday of all 47 charges leveled against him, mostly related to abuse of judicial power. The Seoul Central District Court also found 2 other former Supreme Court justices, Park Byung-dae and Go Young-han, not guilty on the same charges. Yang was accused of interfering in high-sensitive trials and creating a blacklist of judges, among other charges, under ousted former President Park Geun-hye. He was indicted and placed under arrest in February 2019 for his suspected role in the widespread power abuse scandal, but was granted bail after 179 days in detention. The U.S. economy fared tangibly better than widely forecast in the fourth quarter of last year, led by consumer spending. Our Lee Seung-jae has the numbers.
According to the U.S. Commerce Department on Thursday, the U.S. economy grew at a faster pace than expected, growing at a 3.3% annualized rate in the fourth quarter of last year. The figure beat the Wall Street consensus estimate of a 2% gain. The U.S. economy for all of 2023 grew at a 2.5% annualized pace, also well ahead of the Wall Street outlook and better than the 1.9% increase in 2022. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis said that the increase in real GDP reflected increases in consumer spending, exports, state and local government spending, non-residential fixed investment, federal government spending, private inventory investment, and residential fixed investment. The latest data from the Commerce Department also showed that U.S. consumer prices have been easing. Consumer prices in the fourth quarter of last year rose at a 1.7% annual rate, down from 2.6% in the third quarter. Core inflation came in at a 2% annual rate. Meanwhile, the European Central Bank decided on Thursday to freeze all three key interest rates for the third straight time after its last hike in September, keeping the benchmark deposit facility rate at 4%. The interest rate on the main refinancing operations and the interest rates on the marginal lending facility were also kept at a 4.50% and 4.75% respectively. ECB President Christine Lagarde said the ECB board believed any talk of cutting rates was premature, given the uncertain economic outlook and risk of wage growth pushing inflation higher in the first quarter. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has held meetings with leaders of South Korea's Samsung Electronics and SK hynix to discuss plans for an AI chip venture. Altman toured Samsung Electronics' Pyeongtaek complex, the production site of advanced memory semiconductors such as HBMs, on Friday morning and met with leaders of the company's semiconductor divisions. And in the afternoon, he has reportedly held discussions with SK hynix's president and CEO Wang. The visit comes as the ChatGPT founder looks to establish a new venture that includes building a network of semiconductor factories as well as partnering with existing chip-making firms. Samsung's latest smartphone, the Galaxy S24, has broken the company's domestic pre-order record for the series. The firm said on Friday that over 1.2 million pre-orders came in during the past week, with more than 60% for its top-of-the-line Ultra model. Given that the Galaxy S23 sold just over 1.09 million phones during the pre-order period, anticipation is high for this new record-breaking model, which Samsung claims is the world's first AI phone. It'll be available in stores across the world starting on the 31st. And we're exactly halfway through the 2024 Gangwon Winter Youth Olympics, and we're seeing more thrilling performances from the young athletes every day. Tonight, our culture correspondent Song Yu-jin turns the spotlight on some incredible athletes who are making history at the Games.
Jonathan Lurimi's silver medal at Gangwon 2024 is not just his first Olympic medal. It's also Tunisia's first Winter Olympic medal. The 17-year-old bobsledder is one of 3 athletes writing history at the 2024 Gangwon Youth Winter Olympic Games. Tunisia is among the 5 countries making their Winter Olympic debuts.
It's a crazy feeling. Unbelievable. I didn't think it was possible to go this far when I started with the sport, and now I hope being an idol for them to try winter sports so that it can be bigger in Tunisia.
Jonathan's journey with bobsleigh began through the Pyeongchang 2018 Legacy Foundation's New Horizons Academy.
Athletes from countries that don't really have winters can't really give winter sports a try. But the Olympics should be something everyone can enjoy. Projects like the New Horizon Academy help these athletes learn winter sports and pursue their dreams. Later, they could become Winter Olympic ambassadors in their own countries.
Established in 2019, the Pyeongchang 2018 Legacy Foundation aims to preserve competition venues and teach Olympic values to the next generation. In 2022, its New Horizons Academy invited some 100 athletes from 27 countries, mainly from Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia, to Korea.
We actually had them try every different winter sport. And every time they did a sport, we kind of measured their performances. And then after the 2-week program, we invited them back in the winter, but this time we designated sports for them.
Training camps were held every summer and winter leading up to the Gangwon 2024 qualification period last year. In December, 25 athletes, including Jonathan, qualified for the games. Also among them is Thai bobsledder Agnes Kampeol, who won silver at the women's monobob this time. Now, with less than a week remaining until the games draw to a close, the project has set its sights on a bigger goal.
Starting next month, some of these kids, some of these young athletes, we're going to start training for Milano 2026.
That, of course, includes Jonathan.
Of course, I want to be in the big Olympics, the Milano Cortina, hopefully. I'm going to try everything that I can, work hard to qualify for that.
Helping these athletes realize their dreams, the New Horizons Academy shows that nothing is impossible.
I believe. So you have to believe too, and do what you can do, work hard, and you will achieve what you can.
송유진, 아리랑 뉴스, 평창.
A new K-pop girl group, Vicha, has made its debut. JYP Entertainment, the group's agency, released the first 2-song EP, Girls of the Year, on Friday. This 6-member group was created through the TV show America to Korea in 2023, produced by JYP Entertainment in South Korea and Republic Records, the American record label owned by Universal Music Group. The show was broadcast to find contestants for an American-based global K-pop girl group. They'll perform as the opening act for TWICE's 5th world tour in Mexico and Brazil in February, in Las Vegas in March.
The freezing cold wave finally moved away. It was a little cold this morning, but the temperatures rose above freezing for the first time in 5 days. There will be no severe cold this weekend in generally sunny weather. As winter weather continues at the levels of previous years, it will be easier to do outdoor activities this weekend. On East Coast areas, dry weather alerts are issued. As the atmosphere is dry with gusty winds blowing, please pay special attention to wildfires. Inland regions will see minus figures for the morning. Chuncheon will be cold at -8 degrees. Highs in Seoul will get up to 3 degrees, Gwangju and Daegu 7 degrees Celsius. In Gangwon-do province, where the Youth Olympic Games are being held, daytime temperatures will stay above freezing throughout the weekend. Next week, the weather will be similar to the seasonal norms. There's no need to worry about the cold waves. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Hope everyone has a good night and a great weekend.